Freedom is not free. Discover what it takes. It's time to tap and move forward.
Hello and welcome to Tap and Move Forward. I'm your host, Lynn Shelley. Today's guest is Jay Whittaker. He started his career in the active duty Air Force and later transitioned to the Air National Guard, serving 15 years so far. He is a professional touring comedian and an actor. You might have seen him on the Disney Channel, the Food Network, or the Lifetime Channel. He is also a member of the award-winning GeekShow podcast and host of the Incredibly Vocal Minority podcast. In this episode, he talks about his perspectives on adventure, embracing the suck, self-care, and developing relationships in the military. Here's the interview with Jay Whittaker. So Jay, why did you join the military? How old were you?
Oh man. Well, okay, let's see. I joined the Air Force because at the time I wanted to get out of a relationship.
What?
No, I mean, like, that's not
it
the
was
main
an escape?
I mean, it was one of those things. I did well on the SATs. They don't even take those anymore. Do they take the ACTs now? I don't know. But I did well on the SATs. I had a scholarship lined up, and then I got hurt. Messed up my knee, so I lost my scholarship, and I was in a bad relationship at the time, and I went back to living with my parents. I was 19, and got into an argument with my mom over a DMX album. I remember this. Oh my God! And so, I go up to my room. I'm just kind of like cleaning some stuff out, and I come across this Air Force recruiting letter that I got back when I was a junior in high school. And I never opened it. And I was like, oh shit. Like, it had the whole aim high thing, and I opened it, and I always thought very highly of the Air Force. My mother, she worked for Northrop Grumman for 37 years in the defense contractor. She was in the space program, so she worked a lot with a lot of Air Force colonels all the time. We lived in Southern California, so she would come out to Hill Air Force Base a lot. She worked on the ICBM program as well, and so it was just kind of part of it, and I already had like a pretty good example. The Marines wouldn't take me because of my knee issues, and I didn't want to go to the Army. Sorry, I just didn't. My grandfather was in the Army, and he told me to not go Army, and I wanted to go to the Navy, but I get seasick a lot, but I thought, but when I saw that unopened letter and then I finally opened it, I was like, yeah, this seems like maybe the decision I need to do. And I swore I would never leave California, but once I did, made that decision, I don't regret it at all. And so, but it was really, I knew I wanted something more. That's the short answer. I mean, yeah, there was a lot of things that were leading up to it, but I knew I wanted more. I knew I wanted to travel, and I knew I wanted to. At the time, it was 2003, and I just knew there were other threats. This was post 9/11, so I figured, what better way for me to travel, serve my country, and money for school.
Did you have any big surprises when you got to basic training?
Yeah. I didn't know you could fold a T-shirt so well.
So perfectly
yeah,
and
so
precisely.
perfectly. Yeah, and hospital corners. I thought that was like a joke, and then I was like, oh, this is a real thing. For me, there was no surprises. I've always had the mindset, like, home is where you make it. And we're only here for a short amount of time, so just go along with it. I'm not saying, there's times when you need to learn to follow, and there's times when you need to learn to lead. And at that time, I was learning a completely different lifestyle, so I fit in. I felt that I fit in just fine. I didn't have a problem adjusting. It wasn't physically it wasn't demanding, mentally it wasn't demanding. I chose to be there. It wasn't like I was against there. I definitely knew I was seeking something. And so I still don't, 15 years later, I still don't know what that is, but I'm enjoying it, so yeah.
Have you deployed during
Yes.
your time?
That was beginning in the early part of my active duty career. I was in there I was at Balad Air Base, and it was like, what was it, 2006, 2007, like towards that trail end, and so it was. I was in the transition of OIF and OEF, and so that was my experience there was a good time. Like that's the thing is I have a lot of great memories, and I have nothing negative to say. Like because I always would all right, well, I'm here. Let's meet the people that are here. Let's have a good time while we're here. In my downtime I did like a radio show called Kingpin Radio, and while we were deployed, and we basically put together our own mixes of music that we liked and stuff that was going on base. So I was just trying to have fun,
Awesome. How did you make that happen?
I just had some equipment. I had some couple microphones, and I used some of the money that I made from the deployment and bought some stuff on eBay and had it shipped to where I was at. And I was like, oh, I got a cool microphone, and I was working on making music as well. And so I just decided to do that because it was something I was passionate about. I feel that I tell this to a lot of people that when you deploy, you're still, I get that some service members may not have the certain luxuries depending on your career field, but you still have to find that part of you, and you still have to find that you still have to be yourself. You're doing a job, but if you don't make time for yourself, you're not going to enjoy the experience at all. Obviously you want to, the main focus is the mission, but you have to take care of yourself as well, because if you can't take care of yourself, then how are you going to do the mission? That make sense?
Yes, absolutely.
I think so.
100%. I find that as being a recurring theme among high performers in the military is they talk about the importance of taking care of yourself.
So self-care is one of those things now. Yeah, is that the 2018 word is self-care? There's so many new words. Okay. Yeah, it's one of the things that people just overlook so much. I'm a comedian and an actor. I don't work a regular job. I just don't, and it doesn't work for me. And that was a hard thing. For me to realize I would come home and work. I had some great jobs, but I would come home and I never had time for anything. And when the life of a comedian, you work nights a lot, so I would never sleep. I'd be working a regular day job, working a night job, and gigs in between, and trying to be a dad and be available to friends and family and relationships, and it all deteriorated all because I wasn't taking care of myself. I think that in a weird way the military has kind of taught me that everyone has we're all like cogs in a wheel, and we're trying to and everyone's got to play their part, and sometimes certain parts just aren't for certain people, and I feel like that allowed me to kind of settle in the lifestyle that I have now.
If you could give any advice to a newly enlisted member, what would it be?
Any advice to a newly enlisted member? Find a good barber. Find a good barber.
Find a good barber.
Yeah, find a good barber. That's super important.
That'll help you make it through your military
I
career.
mean, it's nice when you get a nice shape up. You're feeling good, you know. But I would say the biggest thing is find your place, and you may have to drive a little bit further out. What I mean by that is, I was down at Keesler a few years ago. Keesler Air Force Base down in Mississippi. Great training base. I was cross training from one career field to another, and so I was there as prior service. So I did have my vehicle with me. But if you go, have you been down that way?
I have,
Yeah.
yes.
And
I
so,
retrained in Biloxi as well.
Okay, so yeah. So you know that 20-mile radius, probably a 10-mile radius, it's just full of everyone from the job. You know, somebody works on base. There's non-priors that work on base. There's officers. So there's a lot of people that you have to interact with, but you probably shouldn't interact with, and there's all this. I felt like I would leave the base, and then I would feel like I was still there because I'd run into people that were from this unit or that unit. So I would drive out of the way. I would go to cities where I knew there weren't military folks. And it's not because I didn't want to be around it. I just needed to distance myself from it so that I could just remember what I like, not what the Air Force wants me to like. And
Yes.
and spent a lot of time rediscovering my hobbies, and I was like, oh yeah, I forgot that I like that. And it's not, but just having that time away, you know, it wasn't a out of spite thing or me being frustrated. It was just like I just needed some time away to pull away, and to feel that I was making time for myself. So that I always tell people make time for themselves. And there's nothing wrong with that. And then just my physical health, you know. You're gonna put on that freshman 15, you know, when you get to your base, you know, hit a treadmill. I don't know. My advice is very. I'm big on self-care, so I would just say, when you're far away from home, there's a lot of hobbies you need to remind yourself who you are. There you go. I'm long-winded if you haven't figured that out.
No, it's good. It's good. I originally trained at Shepherd Air Base, and a lot of people talk about how boring and horrible Shepherd is. Mm-hmm. But I found a Krav Maga class that I would take on the weekends.
Awesome.
It was so much fun.
Yeah.
My teacher was amazing.
Yeah.
The class was awesome. So when people ask me how Shepherd is, I usually say it was awesome.
Right.
I enjoyed it. I had a great class, good people. There's no reason for me to complain. It was a great time.
Exactly. Like it's all about what you make of it. You know, while I was down at Keesler, like I love birds. I went down to Dolphin Island, which is in Alabama. It's like right off it's a small island off the coast of Alabama, and it's a whole bird sanctuary. That's
really cool.
And I had never seen anything like that. I mean, I've seen ones on the West Coast, but I never been. And I went by myself, didn't ask anybody. You know, I know we're focused on wingman and battle buddies and all that. Sometimes you just need to get in the car and just start driving and see where the road takes you, and have that sense of adventure and that self-reliance. And I realized I really do love bird watching, and it was just fun. And so like I would, every so often I'd go out, and then down in Mississippi they have the NASA space station.
Right, yeah.
And so I went on a tour by myself, Camp Stennis, and they test the rocket boosters there, and I saw it all for myself, and I was like, just had a chance to geek out. And you know, sometimes it's fun to do things with a friend, but if you're feeling that impulse that you need to get outside, listen to that call of adventure and just go. So I don't know.
That's great advice. Have you had parts of your career that you found really difficult or stressful?
It was probably switching from active duty to the Guard. I didn't want to. I was very I didn't want to. I didn't want to leave active duty. I liked it. I loved it. Wanted more of it, you know. And but it was hard for me to meet new people all over again, especially in the Guard, where it takes you, if you work in a big squadron, it takes you 6 years just to get everyone's names right, and then by then they're retiring or they've moved on to a different base, and you've only got 2 days to get to know the people.
Right.
So, you know, and unless you go outside of base, outside of work, but it was difficult getting used to the first name basis. That was a little bit different for me at times, and I think the culture, like I'm from Southern California, the culture of Utah is a lot different from Southern California, so that was an adjustment. I didn't plan on being here, and it slowly began to dawn on me that I was like, yeah, you're here. You know, my son's here, so I'm not leaving him, and so it's just like, you're gonna have to figure this out, you know. And a lot of my active duty brothers and sisters, they all transferred and went on to different bases, and I was newly divorced, so I just felt very alone. And, you know, I kind of had, you know, I developed some attitude issues and was going through a divorce, and it was a hard time because I felt like I couldn't get focused. You know, I was, you know, there's roughly 30 days in a month, and for only 2 days I was focused, and that's because of, you know, my service in the Guard. And so there were some hard moments. Felt like, you know, I felt like I should have been promoted at a certain time, and there were stalls in that. But then there was frustration that I felt I wasn't getting the respect I deserved in the office. But then I looked back and said, well, what have you done? You know, there's obviously a reason for this. So, you know, it was an uphill battle, and it was a lot of frustration, but it all worked out.
So how did you really get out of all of that?
I pulled everything apart, basically. I basically realized that I needed to take a step back and examine what I'm doing wrong. You know, there's always, it's so easy for us to blame the other person.
Right.
But at the end, it really just boils down to you. Like, what are you doing? And I realized, well, I asked myself, have you given it 100%? And judging by the numbers, when I broke down my JQS and I broke down where I'm at in my career, have you done this? Have you done this? And I'm like, no, you haven't. Then stop complaining. Go get it, you know? And then see what happens. Now, if you max out and then you're still not progressing, then hopefully it's not another issue, but I was looking at my overall mental health and emotional health and physical health and financial health. It was not good. I was very depressed. My financial health was in shambles, and I needed to figure out how to get back on my feet. And it was a day by day process, and I'm still not there. But I'm emotionally and mentally, physically, financially, I'm in such a better place. But I've taken the road that's less traveled, you know, and I feel like when I felt like I didn't belong in the Air Guard or in the state of Utah, I just said to myself, no, I'm going to make myself a place here. You know, I feel like that's probably helped me the most, is no matter which base I go to or which TDY I go on, I'm always going to make myself, you know, make myself a home there in some way, and basically say to that area, I belong here, you know.
I think that's a really eloquent way of talking about embracing the suck.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Embracing the suck is a big thing. That's a big deal.
Right. It's almost the way that you're describing it. It almost comes across more like, instead of even looking at it like it's a sucky situation, you just embrace it and make the best of it without even thinking about it or without allowing it to get to the point of sucking.
Yeah. Well, here's a fun fact. The shit's gonna suck anyways. Like, it's always gonna suck. But it's half glass, half empty, half full. However, either you can get out of it. And I totally embrace the suck because it's helped me write. It's how I write my jokes. Like being a comedian, like sometimes I think I'm just like, everyone's like, how do you do it? I'm like, really? I take calculated bad decisions and then I write about it.
Calculated bad decisions.
Calculated bad decisions. It's because it's that's all adventure really is. It's anyone with a sense of adventure. It's technically a calculated leaving the house, bad decision. Shit could happen. Trying something new, trying a new hobby, shit could happen.
Absolutely.
That's a bad idea. But it's like you have to, because we're only here for a short time, and I don't want to be a person that fit into a system. I want to make my own. I want to create another system. I want to. There's some people that function that way, and that's fine. But it's just that, and when it comes to the mission, yeah, we're designed to be a part of a system. But I think where it was during that downtime, and when I'm off the clock, so to speak, was finding that part that makes me an individual, and so then I can have that for me. The military, when I'm working, they get all of me. But I have my part for me. I don't know if that makes sense.
It makes sense.
Okay.
So did you find comedy, or did you use comedy to help you in difficult circumstances?
Oh yeah. Ask any of my therapists. Comedy's been my biggest coping mechanism. And comedy was a thing I found through my military brothers and sisters. We play a lot of poker games. I'd go, like, after I got out of active duty, the active duty guys that were still left while I was in the Guard, I'd come back in and they'd invite me over for these 12-hour poker games where we'd be up, throwing our money away. And sorry, I probably should, whatever. But it is what it is. We're friends. We're playing small cash games, but we're having a good time. And you go through a 12-hour poker game, it's gonna get boring. You ever, it's a bunch of guys in hats and shades and trying not to say anything because they don't want to reveal their. No, we're gonna talk. Let's have a conversation. And so that little. That little round table. That's why I like the shape of this bar, because it's like a poker table. It's like a giant poker table. And so I would just sit there and we'd tell stories. We'd exchange stories and tell jokes. And that's when I kind of realized, I'm like, hey, this feels good. Making people laugh feels good. And it made me feel good because I was dealing with a lot of pain from the childhood. Divorce, being a single father and single parent, just adjusting to that lifestyle because it's an adjustment. And I was unhappy with my career. I felt socially and culturally displaced in Utah, and it was so I was just it felt good to just what makes a good joke is tension, and after that long list I just gave you, I had a lot of tension, so it felt good to just make people laugh about some of the situations I had been in. So, yeah, big release for me.
So why did you end up leaving active duty?
I was just a casualty of numbers. It just in my specific career field at the time, there wasn't a CJR, career job reservation. There was a waiting list. I was, they only had like 70 spots. I was like 191 or something. And so I was just a casualty of numbers, and I didn't want to cross train to any of the career fields that they had available. So I was just like, I'll look at the guard or the reserves. And it actually worked out because I was getting a divorce. If I would have stayed active duty and then got the divorce, I would have been, who knows, I could have been in Korea or Shepherd learning Krav Maga. And so it actually worked out better for me to stay in, to go to the guard, because then I could stay here and, help raise my son. So like I said, it's been a blessing in disguise, but I've always had mixed emotions about it. Well, I'm here. I do miss the beach. I miss fish tacos. But the cost of living here is great, and I get to see my son. So it's a fair trade-off.
What do you consider your greatest military accomplishment or the most meaningful experience in your military career?
The most meaningful experience, I think I've been in for a long time, but then there were the years where I didn't do much. It was a lot of just CBTs and briefings. So there are some gaps. I wish I had more stories, but I think back to when I was at Balad and our site got mortared, and there was the equipment was down, so there was no radar picture for the fighter planes outside the wire, and the Predators, and there was no radar picture for anybody, and so we had to bring it back up, and I was just a lowly, A1C, and this freaked me out, but it all worked. We got the system back up, and I was like, all right, it feels good to know that you're competent and you can perform under pressure. And then that was a long time ago, but I would also have to say, as of right now, I hold 2 AFSCs, and I'm really damn proud of that. I held a 7 level and 2 AFSCs, and I'm really damn proud of that because it was a 4-year process for me to get the second 7 level. I just got it like a couple weeks ago.
I saw your Facebook post on that.
And I mean, like, I like legit cried because I realized how much I went broke in the process, because I was waiting for a tech school date. So when you're waiting for a tech school date, you can leave at any given time of the month, and I wanted the first slot available. So for each month, for almost 15 months, I was just waiting for a date, and so I put my entire life on hold for 15 months, and it financially kind of tore me apart, but it gave me the creative freedom to flourish as a comedian even more and build my brand and work on shows. And so I had to really hustle. I mean, but it also taught me to ask for help. There was I'm stubborn, and because I'm so used to depending on myself, but I was able to overcome that, and I felt like I didn't fit in my second career, my second career field. I felt like I was like, this is too much for me at times. I'm slightly dyslexic, so I struggle with reading a lot, and I'm a better on-hand kind of guy, and it was very technical, very logical, and I'm a creative type person, so it was like a fish in the it's a saltwater fish in a freshwater environment, I guess, maybe. So I felt like I felt like I didn't belong there, but once I passed, and completed all my 100%, I felt that for me, I needed that confidence. It was like, yo, I belong here. Not only did I do this, it took a long damn time. I went broke in the process, but but now my confidence is super high in both assets or in both facets of my Air Force career, and I feel that I will be moving forward. I feel like I will be a great asset to the unit down the road because of my experience in both of those career fields. So,
are there skills or habits that you learned in the military that have followed you either into your personal life or into your comedian career?
Yeah, it's in the military just taught me to be self-reliant, and have that resilience. I've been through, without getting too deep into it, but it's just like my childhood wasn't all that great. It was great, but it wasn't, and so, but it taught me how. I think the military does a good job with trying to get our service members to talk about their feelings, and I know there's this stigma that, like, if you talk about it, it can prevent you from advancement, but I don't know. Let me try this question again, but I feel like it taught me a lot of resiliency, and it taught me how to deal with combat my problems at the lowest level possible. It taught me, without sounding corny, but service before self. That was a big thing. When I've done a lot of charity work for comedy, like just going there to do some jokes for some charities and help them do it. I'll do a free show or something like that, and where I can raise money.
And you feel that the military or your experience in the military helped inspire that?
Yeah, well, because you look at EPRs now, and EPRs are now made its way to the Guard, and it's like, great, you're awesome on equipment and you're 100% qualified, but what do you do in your community? And that was a big thing when I was active duty, was being involved in the community, because when you're out there and you're helping, you're amongst the people, it really kind of gives you the big picture, because you're like, oh, this is what we're fighting for. These people, whether you work in finance, or whether you are boots on the ground working in special ops or working communications, you're all part of the mission, and it is nice to be amongst the people that you're supposed to protect and fight for, and that was one of those things that really helped for me.
Were there any people that were really influential to you in your career?
Always. I've had some great commanders that really knew how to just tap into their young airmen, and really listen, because it's intimidating for a young A1C to walk into a colonel's office and be like, "I'm dealing with this, sir," and have a real conversation. And sometimes the formalities, I understand customs and courtesies are necessary, but sometimes when you're in an emotional state where you just need a mentor, or someone who has experienced life. I would go to my supervisors, I would go to my NCOICs, I would go to my flight commanders and section chiefs for all types of life advice. Rediscovering, that I used to hate the fact that I was getting old, and now I look forward to it because of the people that these people are constantly acquiring new skills and new tasks. And I used to, one of my section chiefs when I was active duty, he was in his mid-40s playing hockey. He just started playing hockey for no reason. He's like, I'm old as shit, but I don't care. He's like,
that's amazing.
But he's like, it felt good to just open check somebody on the ice. And so, and then just yeah, when you have great leadership in front of you, it really rubs off on you because you feel like they're going to look out for me because they know who I am as a person. You know, my supervisor right now, I love him. I respect him because we have a very transparent working relationship. I tell him exactly what's on my mind. Sometimes that's a good thing and a bad thing, but he knows how to deal with me, and he knows how to motivate me. And I think that's the biggest thing is when you're put in that position of leadership, is to learn to learn your people, know exactly who's on your. This person may be motivated by rewards and gifts, or some people may be work well with verbal praise and words of affirmation. And so, I'm getting off track here, and I apologize, but it's when you have that good leadership in front of you, it makes you feel like you can take on the world. So
It sounds like instead of waiting around for someone to come and lead you, mentor you, and guide you and find you, you would go out to them to get them involved in helping you or mentoring you.
I think that's very important, especially when you're new. You know, when you're new, like, you need to seek out that training. You need to seek out guidance. You need to seek out mentorship because, and it's. I don't think we intentionally do it as people, but if it's you don't ask, you don't get. That's like the biggest rule in my family, is if you don't ask, you don't get. So if I'm let's say I'm an A1C all over again, and I'm 57% qualified, and I want to be 100% in the next 6 months. I look at my supervisor. He's got 7 other guys. So now he's trying to keep track on everybody. You have to be proactive and instead of reactive. A lot of people they're like, oh, I guess I should probably do this once they get scolded or reprimanded or whatever. And with me, I always felt that I needed to seek out because I knew I was a bit different. I may not respond the way people want me to respond, and I'm all about once we have an understanding. It took a minute for my supervisor to figure out how to get to me but realize that once we have transparency and once we have an open, like, we can communicate with each other, and I didn't feel like where I didn't feel like just a minion. I know there's times when you feel like that, but it's just like if I trust that person I work for, it makes it so much easier for me to get the results. And so I would do that when I was a supervisor. I would, get to know them, have them get to know me. So then once you know that person, you're able to meet it gives you confidence to meet their expectations. Whew. I'm sorry. Hey, for the listeners, thank y'all for listening to a grown man, a very long-winded grown man try to explain this in the shortest way possible.
Are there ways that the military specifically helped you in your comedian career?
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, I'm sorry. The ways that it helped me on stage was confidence. I've given a lot of briefings before. And you want to know what you're talking about.
Right.
There's times where you can get off track. Yeah, and you want to, but it definitely gave me a confidence and it gave me the voice that I needed. A lot of people I've heard compliments on my voice when I'm on stage, or people have no problem hearing me, but it also, you think about training instructors and training leaders from basic training and tech school, and those people had to address, 50 to hundreds of people on a regular basis, give briefings, and so, but they also taught, military is all about bullet statements, bullet points,
Right.
and so get to the point, which, that's the thing I have to still work on, but like it's give them the highlights, give them the bullet points, and that really helped me while I was on stage.
If you could give the rising enlisted generation one superpower or skill set, what would it be?
The art of conversation.
It's a good one.
It's I get it. We live in this age where, where we have all these devices and all this extra stuff, but look up from that device and get to know the people that you work with.
That's a really good one.
And I know me. I'm on my phone sometimes a lot. Sometimes a lot. Okay, a lot. But when I show up for drill weekend or when I'm on a TDY, I want to talk to the people. If I'm on the phone, I'm looking for a restaurant. Anytime I go TDY, don't take me to some franchise shit, like that I can get in any city. Take me to the pub, take me to the bar, take me to the diner where I can, and let's all go to lunch there. Let's get off site, if you got to change in the civilian clothes, whatever, but get off site, get to know your people, and have conversations, because I've lost a lot of friends, unfortunately, to suicide. But when you know your people, you know what's going on, and you can look for the signs, And there were times where I didn't see the signs because I didn't know, and because I didn't know the people, And when people join the military, they're not all from the same place, Some people are from, so they may feel really alone, I was with a guy I was in basic training with him. He's from Costa Rica. His English was adequate, at best, but he felt misunderstood a lot. And finally, we ended up talking, and I was like, "Oh man, what's going on?" He was going through some marital problems, and him and I still talk to this day. That was 15 years ago, and so it's all about having that conversation and realizing, looking for the signs, get to know the people, not just for suicide prevention, but just to build rapport, maintain friendships, and build that relationship. Because who wants to be in the military for 20 plus 30 years and not know a single person?
That would be tragic.
Yeah, you don't want to have that just retirement ceremony where we're like, hey, thanks for this shadow box that's got some stuff that I did on it. Those are some patches,
Yeah.
I know you guys are supposed to be here. Stand still while they read some stuff about me. No one wants that. Make friendships. It'll make sometimes I've actually extended my enlistment just so I could be in the same shop with some of the people I worked with. That's crazy.
It makes a lot of sense on a number of levels, but in the military in general, with the amount of travel that you do, the amount of connections you can make and the people that you can meet, I do agree that's one of the best benefits and greatest assets of the military.
100%. I'm currently touring the country. I've been to Spokane, Denver, Tempe, Alabama, Nashville, D.C., Virginia. I saw old military buddies in almost every city. They come to the shows. I saw guys that we hadn't seen each other in 12 years. And I sang happy birthday to his now adult daughter, which blew my mind. And but I hadn't seen him in 12 years, and they came to the shows. And so I'm getting ready to go back on the road out to do a bunch of shows in Texas and in Florida. And I know I got buddies from my old unit that I'm going to run into. And it's because you spend time just building those relationships. you got friends for life. I know for a fact, as much as I either travel for the military or I'm traveling for doing comedy, one thing I know for sure is I got a couch to crash on at any given time because you just you have great relationships with people. And so
if any of the listeners are interested in following you or knowing about any upcoming shows, what's the best place for them to go?
Well, I'm pretty active on Twitter and Instagram. You can follow me at It's Jay Whittaker. I recently just did a live. I was watching Home Alone, the movie Home Alone, for no reason.
Yeah.
Well, actually, I was showing it to my son because he had never seen it. And I was like, you gotta watch the classics. And I hadn't seen Home Alone in like 20 years. And I was watching this movie. I was like, this movie's insane. I just started live tweeting it. So now I'm going to start live tweeting certain movies and as I just react to them. And so it ended up being pretty funny. So, but also you can find me on GeekShow podcast for those who are not familiar with GeekShow podcast, I call it like the Wu-Tang Clan for geeks. Basically, it's a bunch of guys talking about all the stuff that's going on. As we record this, we recently reviewed the Aquaman movie. I do my own podcast called the Incredibly Vocal Minority Podcast. It's just me rambling into a microphone, usually on a Sunday evening after I've had a couple drinks and talking about my day and what's going on in the world, what's going on in the geek world, and just kind of pop culture. And I know for those that are always looking for tickets, you can find me at wiseguyscomedy.com or drybarcomedy.com. So.
Awesome. Last question is, how do you respond when somebody says thank you for your service?
I never. That's a hard one because it happened last night. I was at the movie theater, and they happened to just see my military ID as I was looking for my wallet or looking for my card to pay, and they're like, "Hey, man, thank you for your service." And my eyes got big, and I just kind of nervously smiled, and I just said thank you. But I have cousins and friends that, are frogmen basically, and and I've had friends that have done a lot more than I have, and I almost feel kind of guilty sometimes, but I know that I still play a part in that whole system, and it's nice to hear. I don't expect to hear it. I don't want that, but it's not like I walk around town pretty like, you better thank me, but it's nice to hear.
I don't think any military member feels that way.
I don't, it's nice to hear, and I usually get really nervous or just a little anxiety about it, but then I take a step back and I think, I wonder, and then I usually follow it up with, if the situation permits, is what chances are they used to serve themselves, or they have a family member that's serving, and so I usually ask, like, do you have a connection to the military? Or do you have, and maybe they have a brother or sister that's deployed right now, and they want that connection. So it's usually, I try to turn it around, even though it's a very anxious moment for me. I try to just inquire what's going on in their life and say, and then we have a good conversation out of it. So
that's really cool. I haven't heard that before. I like that a lot.
It's because you'd be surprised a lot of the times, because they understand the sacrifice.
Right.
And sometimes they just maybe their husband's deployed, maybe their wife is deployed, and they just want that connection for just a face, and to know that, like, yeah, we're everywhere. And so, and you never know. I mean, you just never know what people are going through. So try to make, if the situation permits, like, it was a long line, so I was like, look, we're not going to have this conversation right now, but I said thank you, but sometimes it's nice to see what people say, because they may have a really cool story about, like, oh, my dad was, blah blah blah, and I'm like, wow, and then you've met a new friend, whatever.
Right. It's a reason to connect to another human.
Yeah, that's all we need. Connection to other people. That's how you be a good wingman, right?
Right.
Building rapport. I saw that on a slideshow or on a PowerPoint one time. Build rapport. Oh, my goodness.
Well, Jay Whittaker, thank you so much for being on the show.
I appreciate it.
Thank you for your insight and passing along your experience and the things that you've gained from your military experience. Really appreciate it.
I appreciate you for having me, Lynn. This was a good time. I didn't realize the answers. I didn't know what kind of answers I'd give, and this felt really good to just share that, because I realized I have had a great military experience, and I think it's because of the people I've invested. I've invested, time in my career, but invest in the people, and you'll get way more out of your career than you'll ever imagine. And we're only here for a short time, and sometimes the military can feel like a long time, but invest in the people, and I guarantee it'll fly by.
I hope you enjoyed this episode and found a new mindset to help you excel. I loved that Jay talked about creating home wherever you are. No matter your situation, there is a way to make it your own. Please let me know what you learned by commenting on the Tap and Move Forward website or social media pages. And if you would like to know more about Jay or to read his full bio, please visit www.tamfpodcast.com/JAY.